So today we head back to the Gospels immediately after Jesus' resurrection, where we left off last week on Easter. You might remember Mary Magdalene had been to the tomb where she encountered the risen Jesus. She ran to tell all the disciples what she had seen, but they would certainly experience it for themselves soon enough. So the risen Jesus had appeared to the disciples, showing them his hands and his side, and this truly made them happy, like really happy. Only one problem. Thomas was not in the room with them when this happened. We're not sure why, but for some reason Thomas was out. When he returned, the disciples were understandably excited. So they told him, "We've seen Jesus!" Now, how do you think you would have responded if it were you? Think about it. This was truly a lot to process for Thomas. He might have needed a minute. But Thomas said to them, "First, I must see the nail marks in his hands. I must put my finger where the nails were. I must put my hand into his side. Only then will I believe." Now, sometimes we give Thomas a really hard time about this response. But remember, this was a lot to take in. And I'm sure that Thomas had a whole lot of questions. He knew Jesus had died. And now the other people were telling him that Jesus was back. How was this possible? How could someone who had been crucified and killed rise from the dead only 3 days later? Were the other disciples seeing things? Was this really happening? So many questions. And for Thomas, the only right answer was to see Jesus face to face. And pretty soon, Thomas would get that chance. A week later, Jesus' disciples were in the house again. Thomas was with them. Even though the doors were locked, Jesus came in and stood among them. He said, "May peace be with you." Did you notice anything about this time? Yeah, it's almost exactly the same situation as the first time. Locked doors, Jesus showed up, and then said the same thing. But this time, Thomas was actually there. Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Jesus moved directly to Thomas, addressing his questions, and check out how Thomas responded. Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Isn't that amazing? Thomas didn't move toward Jesus with a list of questions. "Now that I have your attention, Jesus, I have a few questions for you." No, instead, Jesus is Thomas's answer to all of his questions. Thomas believed because he saw Jesus face to face. Now, like I said before, we sometimes give Thomas a hard time for not believing in the first place. But do you want to know something cool about Thomas? He was one of the first disciples to call the resurrected Jesus his Lord and God. He boldly declared it, and later on, he would take that message all over the world. Tradition teaches us that he went to places like India. He was all in for Jesus. Thomas may have had questions, but he let those questions lead him to Jesus. And in the end, Thomas saw firsthand that Jesus was truly the answer to his greatest questions. There's one more thing that Jesus said to Thomas that's really interesting to read as followers of Jesus here. Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen me, but still have believed." Do you realize that's us? None of us have ever seen Jesus. We haven't touched the wounds on his wrist or his side. We haven't sat across the table from him and enjoyed a nice meal. And yet many of us still believe in him. We truly believe that Jesus is our Savior. That's the sort of faith that Jesus is looking for. Now, this doesn't mean that you won't face times like Thomas when you have your questions, or maybe you'll even find something hard to believe. You might go through a really tough time, and it leaves you with questions. First of all, you need to know that having questions is totally normal. It's okay. Even really big and difficult, hard to answer questions. It's part of being human. But more than that, God is not scared of those questions, not even a little bit. Let your questions lead you to Jesus. God is bigger than any question you can have, and if anyone can handle them, God can. God can bring people into your life to help you work through these questions and doubts. People in your family, a pastor here at church, a friend, anyone. If you have a question, you should reach out to one of them or another trusted adult. Don't be afraid. to ask your questions. So today, as we wrap up, let's ask one big question. What questions do you have for God? Think about it. If you could ask God about anything, what would it be? Don't hold back. And remember that God is bigger than any question you could ever have. We'll see you guys next time.